Welcome back, campers. The guy has done it once more. The man Dressel Designs has sent me another yo-yo. At this rate, people are going to think I'm unofficially sponsored. I'm not. We're tight. Dressel just makes good yo-yos and sends them to me. So, I have to say that. This yo-yo was sent for review. But Dressel sent me the emotion. But the fact that he sent this yo-yo to me does not affect my thoughts in any ways, just so it's known. I'm pretty sure I've known about this yo-yo since almost its inception, which I think was near the beginning of 2022. Way back when I'm pretty sure it was meant to sort of be an aluminum version of the Assassin. And at first glance, you may not be able to see the resemblance to the Assassin, but they do have similar profile design cues. Instead of larger, rounder rims and then a small little wall slope, you have big, round rims and a proportionate wall slope, which makes a normal-sized yo-yo. And you can kind of see the lineage, and then there's likely the first thing you thought, which was that the Emotion looks like an alu version of the Monarch, which is also valid. Monarch, my beloved. The main difference between the two is that the Emotion's proportions give the yo-yo a more rounded feel in the hand than the Monarch. And the hub isn't flat, and also there's a slight rim ledge. You can see the family lineage, especially with this clear coat colorway. It really brings out the similarities to the Assassin, I think. Anyways, the specs, which I always blow over for some reason. The Emotion has a 55.2mm diameter with a 46mm width. This puts it in a similar size tier as the Monarch, with the exception that the Emotion is 1mm smaller in diameter. At 65.8 grams, it puts itself in a similar weight class as the Monarch as well. However, the Emotion is a full 7075 aluminum yo-yo, which is nice and premium. But the Emotion has a really, really nice, comfy shape, reminiscent of some classic shapes. Thankfully, a shape that I've been craving on a full-sized monometal for some time. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, but this sort of design that's kind of H-shaped with the large rounded rims, it just seems like it doesn't really exist in standard full-sized monometals. The Otter comes close, but it's slightly undersized. Literally after I finished writing this script, Yo-Yo Factory released the JDS Genesis, which is a modern version of the old Genesis. But honestly, I'm not sure what else there is. I kind of noticed a passing resemblance in the Emotion to the COYW Compass. What, with the recessed rim, the ski jumps, sweet ski jump, my beloved, the circle hub, just a different kind of circle hub, and just noticed some similar elements. However, in terms of play, the Emotion makes me feel a type of way, certain kind of feelings. Overall, I feel the playstyle of the Emotion has a very broad appeal. Old heads can find enjoyment in its comfortable shape and pleasant maneuverability, while people who look to push their combos and yo-yoing, I believe, can enjoy the stability and controllability of the Emotion. The Emotion has some solid kick behind it. Generally, when it comes to yo-yos with these sorts of recessed rims, I don't anticipate a yo-yo with really any amount of power. I just don't. The FIFO didn't have tons of it, most one-drops I've owned don't really have tons of it, and a lot of the COYWs that have this sort of recessed rim interface are actually kind of anemic feeling, but the Emotion comes back to the hand solidly and consistently. Not to say it has a ton of power, it just feels more solid and powerful than other yo-yos with similarly recessed rims. For speed, I wouldn't call the Emotion a speed breaker yo-yo. It has great maneuverability and an overall pleasant pacing. Both of these result in a wonderfully controllable and enjoyable playstyle that I think people who play quickly and people with a more relaxed playstyle can enjoy. It moves quickly if you want it to, but it's not a speed demon, basically. Controllability is great on the Emotion. The pacing is really natural and pleasant, resulting in a very enjoyable, highly controllable playing yo-yo. I wouldn't say you have direct control over the yo-yo, but it's exceptionally easy to control. As I said earlier, it has great pacing that's essential, how you want to pace it. The width causes no accidental catches, and the diameter is nothing large to snag or catch on anything weird as well. The Emotion doesn't feel very restrictive or unnatural. You'll have great control over the Emotion. Stability is interesting in the Emotion. It's solid and can mostly handle everything you hit it with. I have one trick in my entire trick set that consistently, knocks it off axis, unlike most yo-yos in my collection. Emphasis on one trick in my entire trick set. It's weird, because the stability otherwise is fairly impressive. The emotion handle's really rough, fast, spontaneous direction change is great. You can play as hard as you want. It's just that one trick I do that throws it off consistently. Zontals on the emotion are shockingly good. I am able to pull off Zontal combos almost easily with the emotion. It's not as prone to going off axis due to mistakes, and the controllability and pacing make it so it's more than capable for crazy Zontals. Lots of the monometals I've used aren't as capable for Zontal play, so the emotion's propensity for Zontals was a surprise, and a welcome one. Overall, I'd argue that the Yoyo has an appeal to almost everyone, with good stability, a pleasant playfeel that's mostly absent of that rim-weighted sluggishness sensation, as well as the natural pacing and great control. The value isn't anything nuts. As far as I know, this is going to be $60 on release, and it's 7075 aluminum. Swing towards using thick string with the emotion, as it has a slightly wider gap width at 4.55 millimeters, and it was a little slippy when I was using normal thickness string. With thick strings, they were tight, normal binds. Honestly though, compared to some other yo-yos, the emotion kinda spoiled me. Thankfully, it's a monometal through and through. This means I can make easy comparisons for once, at long last. I'm busting out the COYW Compass, C3 Cyber Crash, and the standard itself, the Yoyo Factory Shutter. Compass because the design reminds me of the emotion, Cyber Crash because it's just what I use the most alongside the emotion, and the Shutter because it's the law that I compare monometals to the Shutter. Gonna start comparisons with the C3 Cyber Crash. The Cyber Crash is a great performance yo-yo across the board. However, I find myself enjoying and using the emotion more. This is because the Cyber Crash is a bit harder to control with its naturally faster pacing, at least in comparison to the emotion. With the emotion being a yo-yo with such good feeling, control, and pacing, switching to yo-yos like the Cyber Crash that have naturally fast pacing can result in them feeling more unwieldy. Meanwhile, I don't find myself wishing the emotion had similar levels of performance as the Cyber Crash, because in a lot of ways it has a similar feeling and tier of performance, at least as far as I believe. In regards to Zontals, I enjoy the emotion more. In regards to autopiloting, I enjoy the emotion more. I think the only category that Cyber Crash outclasses the emotion in is speed. Cyber Crash is just faster, but the overall pacing of the emotion, in my opinion, is better. Overall, I prefer the emotion over the Cyber Crash. It feels more natural and enjoyable while still having a similar level of performance to the Cyber Crash in almost all areas except raw speed output. This is basically offset by the fact that the pacing of the emotion feels so great, being essentially whatever the player wants, and the more comfortable feeling in the hand. Cyber Crash is a great yo-yo, but emotion beats it out for me, honestly. On to the second comparison, the Compass. The Compass is a great yo-yo from COYW. It's an old signature of Peter Kavka, who is no longer with COYW. The Compass with unbroken and snow tires is really hard to use. At least in mine, the snow tires cause string rub, which nuked its performance. Chucked some summer tires in, plays great now. Compared to the emotion, Compass has similar levels of controllability. The Compass is highly controllable. However, the pacing of the Compass differs in that it's naturally slightly quicker than the emotion. Not as quick as the Cyber Crash, but it's naturally quicker than the emotion. The big thing here is that the performance of the Compass overall isn't exactly on par with the emotion. The Compass feels a little bit heavier in standard play than the emotion, but slightly quicker. The Compass is outclassed for Zontals by the emotion, and the emotion has a more comfortable feeling in the hand. This is going to be the trend. The emotion is a very comfortable yo-yo to hold. Finally, the Shutter. I got a new one. I wanted the classic aqua color. I consider the Shutter to be the golden standard for yo-yos. Lots of people own it, and in a lot of categories, honestly, it's perfectly serviceable. Not exceptionally good at anything, but not one person can call the Shutter bad at anything. If someone does, they're wrong. Anyways, the Shutter has, similar to the comparison with the Compass, a heavier feeling on the string than the emotion. The gist of the comparison with the emotion is a lot of the Shutter is blank, but not as blank as the emotion. For example, the Shutter is a controllable yo-yo, but not as controllable as the emotion. The overall pacing of the Shutter is great, but it's not as pleasant as the emotion, in my opinion. Even the spin time is slightly better on the Emotion, but that could just be a bearing issue on the shutter, I'm not really sure. Finally, for the sake of discussion, placing this yo-yo on my tier list, link in the description, has been hard. Honestly, it feels wrong to put it in A tier with yo-yos like the Cyber Crash, Creep, and Compass. It just feels better. In S tier, there are options like the OP Yoyo's Polybius, Unparalleled Abduction, and JDS Shutter. Overall, I prefer the Emotion to the Polybius and Abduction, but the JDS Shutter has been a little bit of a hang-up for the placement. I love the JDS Shutter a lot. It has great performance, a great shape, etc. It wouldn't be an S tier if I didn't thoroughly enjoy and love the JDS Shutter. But overall, I think the Emotion is an SS tier yo-yo. What edged it into SS tier was the fact that I was able to place it in S tier almost without a doubt, but once time went on, I slowly found myself enjoying the Emotion more and more. And also, I think that it has a generally higher appeal than most S tier yo-yos. It really has a lot of appeal to a lot of people. The Emotion has great performance, but it also has a ton of appeal to just being able to autopilot and play casually. It's just a great yo-yo. So it just kind of edged itself above the S tier yo-yos, which are all great performing yo-yos, but might have, not as much appeal, or they might not be as comfortable in the hand. But anyways, that summarizes my thoughts on the Dressel Designs Emotion. This is a great yo-yo. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and reviewing it has been great. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Be sure to subscribe. Adios.